Per OAuth, you are in danger. Silicon Valley is talking about AI and inviting the US Senate. And 1Password is talking about the one thing you don't talk about. Passwords being leaked by 1Password. All this and much more on today's episode of MSP Dispatch.
This episode is presented by OIT VoIP. Enhance your client's communication abilities with our VoIP solution, featuring integrated billing, on-demand training, and live US support. Collaborate seamlessly with Microsoft Teams integration and put your entire phone system in your pocket with Mobile X. Improve your offerings and increase profitability with reliable service for 1/10 of the average MSP acquisition cost. To learn more, visit oit.co or dial 844-CALL-OIT.
Good morning and welcome to the October 27th episode of MSP Dispatch, your source for news, community events, and commentary in the MSP channel. I'm Tony Francisco, joined by my amazing co-host, Mr. Jason Slagle. Jason, how are you doing, brother? It feels weird, because now I can't really touch you at the party. It was kind of a...
I get it wrong too. I point the wrong way. It's like 3 locations and 4 shows. I'm at home now. I've got stuff going on right after we do this, and I got to go drive about an hour away to camp tonight. So,
4 shows? Wait, hold on. First off, how many shows did you run from the creepy hotel room that you were in? I'm just kidding. Okay. Were we the only show?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've done the last 4 of these.
Oh, that's right. No, I thought you meant 4 shows before this. I was
no.
Dude,
no,
man.
The one I did this morning, I was about
That is awesome. I am doing really, really well. I think there's so many things happening in the industry, and you and I have meetings with vendors at pretty large scale, and so today one of the meetings that I had today was very much related to kind of partnerships among the big players. We're actually going to talk about that in today's stories. But the movement, the activity in the industry is so impressive that although it takes not just weeks, months, but years to finally come to fruition, I think it's for the betterment of the community as a whole. And although we see this massive aggregation occurring in one side, if you just turn just a little bit, you see these new pop-ups showing up that were just amazing. Look at Roost, for example. Roost was nowhere, and then boom, and they are doing amazing stuff. I'm just pointing that out. Hey, Roost, maybe we could talk to someone over there. Maybe what's the guy named Wes? The guy named Wes, does he know anything about Roost? Maybe. Wes Spencer. Amazing friend of the show, by the way. I want to talk about all this stuff today, and we should probably get right into the news.
Sounds great.
And in my first story from darkreading.com, researchers at Salt Labs identified critical API misconfigurations in 3 major online platforms, Grammarly, Video, and Bukalapak, potentially exposing hundreds of millions of users to credential theft and financial fraud. These flaws in the open authorization, that's OAuth standard, could allow attackers to take over accounts on numerous websites. The issue, dubbed Pass the Token, involves using a third-party site's token for unauthorized access to other services. Discovered between February and April, these vulnerabilities have been resolved in the mentioned services, but similar risks may persist throughout thousands of other websites. OAuth's implementation by developers is often flawed, despite the standard itself being secure. To mitigate risks, developers must understand OAuth's intricacies, possibly using third-party monitoring tools to detect and prevent such vulnerabilities. So, Jason, let's just peel this back just a hair.
So, I mean, my first thought is
OAuth. What? Yeah, give me your thoughts on OAuth.
My immediate
what are your thoughts?
Are only one of those 3 sites I would consider a major online platform.
Well,
we won't go there. This is a very real attack. So,
yes.
Or you were going to go with it.
I just give me your thoughts on OAuth. I mean, because everyone has, there's and for the edification of everyone out there, there's SSO, single sign-on, which we all want. Oh, it's so great, but is it great? I mean, there's everything has a cost, and there's different ways to achieve that single sign-on ease of use, and OAuth is one of the ways. Okay, and there's SAML. There's a variety of components. There's a variety of components, but SAML and OAuth are kind of the way that you go. What are your thoughts on OAuth?
It's very complicated, right? If you actually read the RFC and all the specs around it, it's relatively difficult to get your brain around, and as such, it's relatively difficult to implement correctly. It's easy to implement incorrectly. It's relatively difficult to implement correctly. So if you don't understand those intricacies, you end up making mistakes like this. And I don't know, it's one of those things that honestly, one of the first things you learn in security is, unless you have a really good reason and probably 19 PhDs in math, you don't write your own cryptography, right? You use a third-party library because these are solved problems, right? So at this point, I don't quite understand why anyone would not be using a third-party OAuth library, because it doesn't call out that these were using one that was vulnerable, or we would see that mentioned instead of these particular sites. So it sounds like these are probably just misconfiguration and misimplementation errors by these sites that somebody has located, and they're probably the same misconfiguration in all three, honestly.
Well, you may be opening up an interesting point to the very audience that we're talking to. So the MSP audience, the managed service provider, the last mile. So if we're coming from we got vendor through distribution, through the reseller, that's the MSP, to the end customer, all the way to the end user, as it's traversing those entities in the industry that we all know so well, there are a lot of organizations that receive services from the MSP.
Yes.
Do you think there is a value into an MSP learning the RFC for OAuth to go do an audit on the OAuth implementation? Do you think that an MSP, is this outside the swim lane of an MSP? Should they know this? What are your thoughts on that?
Unless they're developing code, it's going to be really tough, right? You don't typically have access to the code of the third parties. I presume unless somebody's leaked it on the dark web, can't go get the source code of Grammarly. If the MSP is implementing OAuth from scratch and is maybe writing code or trying to implement authentication for something for the provider, or SAML and more directly, I think it's prudent that they understand how it works to avoid making common misconfiguration, because on top of coding errors, there are misconfiguration errors you can make with these things that will also open yourself up. We've talked about conditional access, you and I, a bunch on this call, right? And that's an error that sounds very similar to this error where you can just take a token and then just reuse it somewhere else. And that, if you follow the spec, that shouldn't be allowed, right? And you should have additional checks in place for that. And those are the types of things I think MSPs can help with. They can look for configuration errors and not necessarily code errors.
I like that. I like that. And just to be very clear, the MSP's almost innate job is to look at the qualifications and the regulations of the policy. So the policies should delegate the processes, and the processes are supported by the mechanisms that are implemented. And most people, and we all know this, every MSP right now is squirming it reverse. Let's buy something, implement processes around it, and then bolt on policies at the end. Let's turn that around. Policies, processes, and then the mechanisms. So for the MSP community out there, please possibly focus on that policy, and then find the skill sets, if it's possible, to kind of look at the implementation of and possibly replacement of the mechanisms there. So finding the right people is good. You should get together and have a party, possibly do it in Silicon Valley, and definitely bring the U.S. Senate. And that's where Jason talks about it. Jason, you're up.
And that takes us to my first story. The U.S. Senate and Silicon Valley host second AI Insight Forum, from Andrew Teratola from Engadget. The U.S. Senate's AI's Insight Forum recently reconvened, hosting notable figures like Mark Anderson, John Doerr, Max Tegmark, and Derek Johnson. The discussion focused on transformational innovation in medicine, energy, and science, as well as sustainable innovation for enhanced AI security and transparency. Senator Schumer emphasized the need for substantial federal investment to drive American-led innovation in AI, suggesting innovative funding methods like the Grand Challenges Prize. Senator Schultz and Kennedy introduced the Schultz-Kennedy AI Labeling Act, advocating for clear labeling and disclosures to prevent deception in AI-generated content. This meeting was part of the Senator Schumer's Safe Innovation Framework and followed the introduction of the AI Advancement Act of 2023, which proposes AI bug bounty programs and regulatory incentives. These discussions are part of ongoing efforts to lead in AI innovation and develop comprehensive bipartisan AI legislation. Oof, that's a handful, Tony. I'm suspect. What are your thoughts here?
I don't understand what the objective is. So is this where we confuse activity for productivity? Is this like, hey, we're doing something, we're not actually going to do something, but we're doing something, but we're not actually going to do something? What is this? Just a conversation? It's just vapid dialogue with no? Are they implementing policies? What are the goals? Okay, or is this maybe just the incubation part of understanding what we need to do?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of these senators give questions and stuff on technology that just make me wholly believe they don't understand it.
First off, they describe the internet as tubes. I just want to point that out. And sometimes the tubes get clogged. I understand that there probably is some desire and some need to regulate it, right? But I think we have to have a clear understanding of the problem we're trying to solve here. Like I will 100% welcome bounty program and disclosures and other things that increase transparency and drive people to try to make good decisions and try to do things securely. I am not sure, unless these people are fed by way smarter people than they are in the public hearings, I don't necessarily believe that they're the right people to be driving this forward. So you hit on something amazing. In another conversation, outside of this particular conversation, something was said to me, and it really resonated. Something about like, hey, if you're gonna, I said, something about being gone for 3 or 4 days. Everything's on rails, and everyone's doing exactly what should be done. And I feel very comfortable if I was gone for 3 or 4 days, not 5 days, because then my own neurosis can, a little neurotic in there, kicks in. But 3 or 4 days, I come back and everything is exactly where it should be. And I don't even think anyone would ask, which is kind of concerning in itself. But someone said that is the sign of a good leader, right there. Because you've painted the picture, you've explained exactly what you want, and then you've got the right team to implement it. In this particular case, the leadership, as they describe the internet as being a bunch of tubes, I don't believe that we have seen a senator say, I don't know as much about this as I would like to. However, I have 1, 2, 3 individuals here that we discuss regularly on this topic, and I would like them to weigh in. Is that appropriate? And then we can see, because now you've done 2 things. You recognize that you know what you don't know, which is just, magical. When people say, I don't know the answer, let me get someone who does. I'm like, thank you, rather than just talking, thank you. And 2, you get to actually truly judge the people that are influencing the decision, if not ultimately making the decision. And this is just a rubber stamp coming from the power that be. Do you think we should see more of that type of leadership from the Senate, as opposed to hearing the Senate or the House or whoever the governing mechanism talk about the internet being tubes? Do you think that's appropriate? Is that even scalable?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with that approach, right? Like, these are senators that, and not that there's not older people, older than me, older than you, that understand computers well, but many of these are lifelong politicians that were essentially, in the heyday of their career, we were using Apple IIs, right? So they are, right, we're not running a whole lot of AI or anything other than Oregon Trail on an Apple II. So this is a pretty non-concrete topic to try to get your brain around. And you often wonder if they're influenced by like Terminator, right? If they're afraid of Skynet, and is that what this legislation? We're making bug bounties to ensure that the T2000 is never created.
You're simultaneously educating all of us, but yet just shooting all of our hope and dreams down the tubes, down the internet.
100%. And speaking of dashing hopes and dreams, I'm going to take you to our next story of dashed hopes and dreams.
Oh. Yes, Jason, jumping into my next story from bleepingcomputer.com. 1Password is disclosing a security link linked to the Okta breach. 1Password, a password management platform for over 100,000 businesses, experienced a security incident linked to its Okta ID management tenant. While investigating suspicious activity related to the Okta support system incident, 1Password determined that no user data was compromised. Okta had previously disclosed a breach in its support case management system, which involved the uploading of sensitive data. In 1Password's case, a threat actor breached the Okta tenant by using a stolen session cookie for an IT employee. The incident was detected when the IT team received an email request, and collaboration with Okta's confirmed that this was in fact a breach. 1Password has taken security measures, including credential rotation and stricter MFA rules. Jason.
Okay.
Cookies. They're a major problem, but I do love cookies, and we all love cookies, but cookies are a problem. Talk to us.
My wife made really good chocolate chip cookies yesterday, but those aren't the types of cookies we're talking about here. These are actually tokens. And I feel like we've had a shocking number of similar stories that all have the same theme going on here. The threat actors want access to data. The data could be juicy passwords at 1Password. It could be files at a healthcare provider that they can extort you with, and they are going to take the easiest path they can take to get to that data. And in this case, if they can steal a token and they can replay that token, they're going to do it. And we've talked about that. I don't know how many times I can talk about that and tell people to configure your things properly so that those tokens shouldn't be reusable, right? And if you're going to be able to reuse them, and in the case of the Okta breach, they probably could come very close because they had the full like browser query, or they had the full
entire string.
It make user agent and everything match. But generally, we should be able to configure things like travel rules and other IP matching and region things to make it really difficult to reuse those tokens if they're configured properly.
IP source, destination, timeout periods, and recycled cache, disabling. I mean, the string in entirety matching the browser version, even just the browser version. Oh, this is a different browser version, just off one. Done. So.
Yeah, in this case, they stole HARS, so they would have access to the full user agent, so they could make it look really close to that browser that was coming in, but there are other things you potentially... If I work for something like 1Password, I wouldn't expect the token lifetime to be long, right? Like, I want those tokens to expire in like 17 minutes or some ridiculous amount of time. Like, I don't care if it's inconvenient to log in a bunch. You literally have the keys to the kingdom here.
So my personal opinion, I love 1Password. Like, loved it. But I went with a different solution, Bitwarden. So I went with Bitwarden. Do you really? Oh, that's funny. And do you use the self-hosted or the cloud?
We use the cloud. For reasons. It's more featureful, and some of those features were actually we utilize, like some of the sharing stuff,
yes,
like clients and stuff. It's harder to do that self-hosted.
Oh, it's nice. You just put it in a folder for a client, boom, done, and then they have everything, and then you can retract it, and you just pull the folder access. So, but I also went with the self-hosted because I can put it in a Docker image, and then guess what? Just about every few months, I just kind of back up and restore, and then shut the Docker down. And I have a script that actually does that, because in the event Bitwarden goes down. Oh, can you imagine that? Just process that. Oh, or even worse, someone compromised Bitwarden and wipes out everyone's passwords, but they have it. But they sync all those passwords to you, which is nil, a null factor. And then and they have all these passwords. What do you do? I like bracing for impact on those scenarios. And I still, once a year, burn things to DVD drives. I'm not joking. I have binders and binders of DVD drives just in case an EMP comes and wipes out all of my NASs and stuff. That's who I am. You guys, we joke about how I'm a little neurotic, and I am a very lucky individual, and luck favors the prepared. So going back to Bitwarden versus 1Password. Love 1Password. My question to you is, isn't there an easy solution for this that you first things first, timeout period, timeout and credentials? I mean, the application itself can prompt you saying, hey, would you like to continue this? And you say yes.
Yes. Yeah.
What am I missing here? I feel like I'm missing. Like me and you we're speaking some other language that seems easy.
I don't understand it because like Marriott's website does that. Like, and I'm booking hotel rooms. I'm not holding passwords I'm not the support admin of a password safe. Like, always a hotel chain is more secure than.
I'm booking a hotel room. I don't have the entire credential list for an entire operating infrastructure that's load balanced among other people with people's passwords to their computers and the servers and everything. Oh, okay. We're saying the same thing.
Yeah,
okay. Guess what we need to do?
Oh, I can't remember. What do we need to do?
We need to calm down, have a drink, but we do need to talk about notables.
Sounds great.
Let's do it.
And in my first notable, Amazon enables passwordless passkeys on iOS and the web. From Umar Shakir and The Verge, Amazon is introducing passkey support for its online platform and mobile apps, enabling customers to log in using their device's biometric and bypass traditional passwords or two-factor authentication via email or text. Although Amazon tested passkey on the web, the implementation still required a 2FA code, and the mobile apps lacked passkey support. Users can enable passkey support through their account settings on Amazon.com or on the iOS app. Amazon has not specified a timeline for Android users, but confirmed that it is on the horizon. While Amazon joins other companies and offered passwordless access, it is important to recognize that many organizations continue to depend on conventional passwords. And in my next notable, Flipper Zero can now spam Android and Windows users with Bluetooth alerts. From Bill Toulis, Bleeping Computer. A customized Flipper Zero firmware known as Extreme now includes a feature for Bluetooth spam attacks on Android and Windows systems. Originally demonstrated on Apple iOS device, the technique uses Flipper Zero's wireless capabilities to send spoof advertising packets to nearby devices, flooding them with connection requests and notifications. While these spam attacks are more of a nuisance than a serious threat, they can be creative and potentially used in social engineering scenarios. Android 14 and Windows 11 users can block these notifications by adjusting their settings. While these broadcasts cannot execute code or cause harm, awareness of phishing risks and the capability to stop persistent notifications can help in preventing inconvenience.
In my first notable mention, from channel-E2E.com, data protection and ransomware recovery specialist Veeam Software has formed a strategic partnership with cybersecurity services provider Sophos. The collaboration will merge Veeam data platform with Sophos Managed Detection and Response, that's their MDR. The collaboration will merge Veeam data platforms with Sophos Managed Detection and Response, that's MDR, adding human-led threat detection and response to threaten the security of critical backups. Veeam's platform will monitor for potential threats in an organization's environment and alert Sophos MDR in the event of a detection threat, allowing the prevention of attacks such as ransomware and network breaches. This integration solution is expected to be available later this year, enhancing the cybersecurity's protection and recovery capabilities. In my next notable mention, from VentureBeat.com, IBM research shows that ChatGPT is getting good at crafting convincing phishing emails. In an experiment comparing AI-generated and human-made phishing emails, ChatGPT created a nearly as compelling email in just 5 minutes using 5 prompts. However, humans maintained a slight lead in click-through rates with 14% as opposed to AI's 11%. IBM's Stephanie Carruthers noted that emotional intelligence, personalization, and concise subject lines gave humans an edge. She also stressed that the need to educate employees about unconventional phishing warning signs and the importance of recognizing AI-generated phishing attempts with correct grammar. Phishing remains prevalent due to its exploitation of human vulnerabilities, highlighting the need for proactive security measures to counter evolving threats.
Now here's a segment from this week's episode of AI Roundup. Okay, let's jump in and give it a whirl. So, how do you use ChatGPT with DALL-E? First, you just want to start a new chat. And I do have to point out, as I've already said before, you need to be a Plus or Enterprise subscriber. Then you just go start a new chat and go to this drop down where you'll see DALL-E 3 Beta. It's that simple, and it is kind of a bummer that you can't combine using DALL-E 3 with other plugins like web browsing or, the whole marketplace of plugins that they have. So if you're trying to accomplish something where you need both, you're going to have to kind of jump between two different chat threads. Okay, so for my use case for this, I'm not sure if any of you noticed, I snuck in a couple of memes, we'll call them, of this phrase, sweet meat in an 8 teriyaki. Shout out to my buddy Jimmy for coming up with that phrase that just gets stuck in my head. But I tried this phrase out with ChatGPT to see how far I could take it. And I was really impressed that not only it didn't block my prompt, as Bing often did, but it helped me generate an entire social media campaign for this phrase. We got a whole series of products, t-shirts, images that we can share to help tell the story of sweet meat in an 8 teriyaki. And this went on for quite a while until we actually reached the point where we were getting some prompts for a new product that was a competitor to sweet meat in an 8 teriyaki called It's Biran. Let's see if we can skip ahead a little bit here. And yeah, here it is. It's Biran, and I believe this is health sauce. I've been having a ton of fun with DALL-E 3 and ChatGPT, but it's also been a huge improvement to my workflow as I'm coming up with episodes. I've been able to brainstorm promotional images for social media. I can do storyboards. I can generate assets for thumbnails and on-screen graphics. So this is a huge step up in capabilities for both large language models and generating images. There are plenty of amazing upcoming events taking place across the community, so let's see what's happening this week. Starting on Monday through November 2nd, an in-person event, Channel Partners Conference and Expo in Miami, Florida. And then on Halloween at 1 p.m., Cybersecurity Horror Stories presented by Huntress. And the next day on November 1st at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, before the event, Strategies for Success presented by Channel Program. And also on the 1st through the 2nd, an in-person event, the MSP Revenue Generator in Atlanta, Georgia. And coming from the MSP Media Network this week, we have later today at 12 o'clock noon, Bits and Books returns for a new book, Leaders Eat Last. And then starting on Monday at 1 p.m., we're going to start a round of Pitch It finalist spotlights featuring Thread. And the next day at 1 p.m., Nodeware. And then for Halloween at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll be having Spooky Cybersecurity Jeopardy, a Halloween special for MSPs.
So how'd you like today's show? If you like it, please hit that thumbs up button. If you did not like it, make sure you hit it more times as long as it's an odd number. And if you want to hear more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on your YouTube or favorite podcatcher. Did you know that we have a Discord where we post all of these stories all week long? You can even propose your own stories and even vote for which ones we will cover, which we definitely appreciate. And as Ray's friend, and sometimes my friend, Rich Banky says, make sure you tell a friend about us. Also, be sure to follow us on social media at MSP Media TV. And do you have any questions? Email us, news@mspmedia.tv for answers on the next episode, or just leave us a voicemail, 833 MSP Network. So, Jason, I'm just going to end this with some magical stuff. That was episode number 160. Number 160 in the MSP Dispatch. The news were voted the second most popular MSP news station. I absolutely love our time together. And then there are times where I can actually see you, but I can't see you now. I'm kind of like you're like right there, but like not there. You're almost but it was great seeing you in person. Yeah. So with that, Jason, go ahead and land this plane. Sign us off.
Yeah, it's been great co-hosting or guest hosting here for a couple weeks, and I guess I'll talk to you next time I do it or get invited back for a story. And until then, everyone, have a great week.
Be safe, everyone.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.
Jumping straight into my first story from darkreading.com. Resourcer coming out right out of the gate hot. Here we go.